Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Pakistan High Commission Singapore, I welcome you all at today's event, the screening of docu-series, Allegory, a Tapestry of Guru Nanak's Travels. We are extremely grateful to you for taking out time to join us in celebrating the sacred journey, the rich history, and the holy legacy of Baba Guru Nanak. The High Commission of Pakistan takes pride in hosting this event aimed at promoting religious diversity and faith tourism. We congratulate Mr. Amardeep Singh, director and producer of the docu-series, as well as his entire team for taking us along in this wonderful expedition of 9 countries, including Pakistan, where Baba Guru Nanak traveled and preached his message of faith, equality, fraternal love, and virtue. To formally begin the event, I would like to request Ms. Ruxana Afzal, High Commissioner of Pakistan to Singapore, to give her opening remarks.
Excellency Ambassador Zain Labadi Rashid, Non-Resident Ambassador of Singapore to Kuwait, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the screening of docu-series Allegory, a Tapestry of Guru Nanak's Travels by Amardeep Singh. I am extremely grateful to you for joining us today on an exciting journey in the footsteps of Baba Guru Nanak, together with Amardeep, a true disciple of Babaji, who devoted 3 years to research on the life and teachings of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. His sojourn through 9 countries for filming of this 24-episode docu-series is something that could have only been driven by pure passion and commitment. I commend him and his wife, Vivinder Kaur, and his team for this marvelous accomplishment. Baba Guru Nanak's message of love, truth, honesty, equality and service of mankind is universal. It applies to the entire humanity without discrimination. He says, before a Sikh, a Muslim, a Hindu or a Christian, let's become Hindus. He says, he who cannot have faith in himself can never have faith in God. The land of Pakistan is blessed to be the birthplace of this great saint, where he lived most part of his life and traveled extensively. His beautiful poetry and close association with Sufi saint Baba Fariduddin Ganchakar won the hearts of all people, including Muslims of Indo-Pakistan, who hold him in the highest esteem. This was the reason that the government of Pakistan launched Kartarpur Sahib Corridor in November 2019 to connect Gurdwara Kartarpur in Pakistan, the birthplace of Baba Guru Nanak, with Gurdwara Dera Baba Nanak in India. The launching announced to commemorate 550th birth anniversary of Baba Guru Nanak facilitated thousands of Sikh pilgrims from across the border who have since been visiting the Gurdwara, rejuvenating their faith and the spiritual connection they have with the land of Pakistan. Prime Minister Imran Khan stated at the opening of the Kartarpur Corridor, and I quote, Pakistan believes that the road to prosperity of the region and bright future of our coming generation lies in peace. Kartarpur Corridor not only opened the doors but also the hearts of the Sikh community of Pakistan for the Sikh community. We celebrated Baba Guru Nanak's 552nd birth anniversary last month, with Sikh pilgrims pouring into Pakistan in large numbers from around the world, including India, using Kartarpur Sahib corridor, which was named as Corridor of Hope by the UN Secretary General when he visited the Gurudwara in 2020. He was moved to see Muslims, Sikhs, Christians and Hindus praying side by side in harmony. I have personally known Mr. Amardeep Singh and his wife Vivinder Kaur since my arrival here in Singapore about 2.5 years back, and have been extremely impressed by their dedication to this project. They are true ambassadors of interfaith harmony. Amardeep's 2 remarkable books on Pakistan's rich Sikh heritage are among my most prized possessions. I would now like to call on stage another friend of Amardeep. Mr. Manraj Sekhun has been associated with Amardeep and his project for a long time. Being CEO of Templeton Asset Management and Chief Investment Officer of Franklin Templeton Emerging Markets Equity, Manraj has a 25-year-long global investment experience. His connection with today's event is that he is a collector of Sikh art and artifacts, and some of his pieces are currently on display at the 6th in Singapore exhibition at the Indian Heritage Center. Manraj was also executive producer of an acclaimed and award-winning motion picture, The Man Who Knew Infinity. Let's hear from Manrajji how he looks at this immensely important project. Over to you, Manraj.
Good afternoon. Very good to see so many faces, such a large gathering for the first time in a long time. Your Excellency, High Commissioner Roxana Afzal, very good afternoon. Ambassador Zainal Abidin, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Zareen and I, my wife Zareen and I, are delighted to be here to be part of this very special event. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces, and when High Commissioner Roxana invited me to say a few words, what I thought is that speaking about Amardeep, speaking about Maninder, speaking about this wonderful project, we could spend hours talking about it, but I'm going to keep my remarks very brief because I think you're really here to listen to Amardeep and his description of this very special project. First of all, I want to congratulate the High Commissioner and her team. I think undertaking this event is notable. The project that Amardeep and Belinda have pursued is a very special one, something that's never been attempted before, and marking it in this way in Singapore here is quite something. And of course, I want to congratulate Amardeep and Belinda. Unfortunately, Belinda can't be here today. I believe she's traveling. But we've had very few opportunities to mark the project, where we are in the project over the last few months. Most of it done virtually, I think, Amardeep. So it's very special for us to be here today. I first met Amardeep about 5 years ago, when he had just completed the first book, Lost Heritage. And I was introduced to him, our dear friend, Mr. Rajit Bhatia, who's here today. And when I heard about his project and the way he was going about it in Pakistan, interacting with various members of government, the military, to try and find ways to gain access to the monuments, the old gurdwaras, and find new ground to tell this very special story of Sri Guru Nanak. I was struck by his passion, his commitment, his energy to the cause. And what was clear about what Amardeep was doing, I think, was it was coming from a very pure, authentic, honest perspective. It was something that was very deep within him and Belinda that we wanted to complete. Now, many of you have seen his books. Some of you have seen the episodes. I think the work is there. It's clear for everyone to see. I don't think I can do it justice up here in the next couple of minutes. But what is clear is, first of all, the lengths they went to cover so much ground around the world, 9 countries. There's High Commissioner so eloquently described, crossing humanity, helping people understand the message of Guru Nanak from over 500 years ago, which was as strong then and perhaps even stronger today. And when you look at the quality of the project that Amardeep has put together, I think one of the first comments I made to Amardeep was, this is BBC quality. This is not the work of a first-time producer. This is not the work of somebody who's come from a different line of profession into this. And I truly believe that. And what is also striking, when I think about the approach Amardeep's taken, is this is not a sermon. It is not the viewpoint of a theologist. It is not somebody who's trying to educate another human being about a different religion. It is a very human approach. It's a very humanistic approach. And it is really here to show us the importance of some of these messages, which were as relevant today as they were at the time they were made. And as you know, no work of this kind has ever been undertaken before. The kind of work that Amardeep and Belinda have done is gargantuan, it's awesome. And I think in years to come, we're going to see experts, observers of religion, observers of people, look at this book of work and really be quite amazed at what was accomplished. Amardeep and Belinda have reminded us, first of all, about the universal message of Guru Nanak that resonates today as strongly as it did then. Secondly, they've also shown us the importance of the story of the peoples around these different parts of the world. And it also, most importantly, shows us how much we have in common around these parts of the world, rather than how much we have different. So the last thing I'd like to say is, I'm also very proud that Amardeep has flown the flag of Singapore as a fellow Singaporean Sikh. I think it's wonderful that this project began here, was developed here, and continues to be led out of Singapore. Again, congratulations, High Commissioner, congratulations, Amardeep. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Nanak, for your remarks. I now introduce moderator for today's event, Ms. Zahra Zaidi. Ms. Zaidi currently works as psycho-emotional counselor, helping people lead meaningful and fulfilling lives. She has been living in Singapore for past 20 years and is a member of Singapore-Pakistan Association, working to forge closer ties between Pakistan and Singapore. I would now request Ms. Zahra Zaidi and Mr. Amardeep Singh to please come up on the stage. A huge round of applause for them.
There is only one God. His existence is eternal. He alone is the creator. He is not afraid of anything, nor does he keep enmity towards anybody. He never dies. His form is timeless and he is self-existent, free from birth and incarnation. One can realize him fully only through the grace of a spiritual guru. Guru Nanak, page 1, Guru Granth Sahib. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and Assalamu Alaikum. Thank you, Farhana, for your kind introduction. I would like to take this opportunity to once again welcome each and every one of you who is here with us, and thank you for joining us today and being a part of our event. Sharing thoughts, feelings and emotions is an innate human need because we are naturally hardwired to learning more about ourselves, others and the world by making meaning and connections. The key to connection, however, is having an open heart and a fresh, unpolluted mind, one that is unbiased and receptive to the beauty and diversity around us, is open to making connections with the common denominators and building bridges with the differences, hence giving us an opportunity to learn what is beautiful and enriching and unlearn what is divisive and destructive. When we really see beyond looking, hear beyond listening, feel with our hearts and smile with our eyes, We discover each other's authentic and unique stories and benefit and grow from collective knowledge, universal wisdom, and absolute truths. Stories are special because they are powerful connectors. Every story speaks to its audience at a personal level, with the finer nuances gently unwrapped subjectively by each person. How critically the audience engages with the story depends on their individual life journey, maturity, sensitivity, and emotional intelligence. While some appreciate just the surface beauty, the discerning ones truly cherish the meaning, intention, skill, and effort involved. In order to comprehend the essence of the story, one must reflect, introspect, and delve deeper within oneself to understand what the story actually means to them. Storytelling has evolved organically with the evolution of humanity itself. The most successful storytellers at any point in time are the ones who put their heart and soul into telling honest and authentic stories. This is the magic ingredient for forming a connection, such that the narrative of the storyteller is absorbed by the audience, inducing a multi-sensory perception beyond the obvious. This is when the bigger meaning and greater experience is lived by them too, signaling a deep resonance and reciprocity. It is a privilege to share with you the endeavors of one such couple, Amardeep Singh and his lovely wife, Vininder Kaur, who embarked on an arduous and ambitious yet soulful journey, retracing the steps of their spiritual guide, Baba Guru Nanak, whose 552nd birth anniversary was recently celebrated. Baba Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikh religion and a son of the soil of Pakistan, went on an enlightened journey at 35 years of age, spanning 22 years and traversing 9 countries, namely Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Tibetan China, Sri Lanka, Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. He undertook this journey with his Muslim friend, Bhai Mardana, with the pure and selfless intention of seeking truth, universal fellowship, and oneness. Baba Guru Nanak preached love, tolerance, kindness, and forgiveness, the virtues that unite humanity, and a message that transcends geographical frontiers as well as borders of faith. Unbeknown to Amardeep initially, and realized only later, there was a deeper parallel journey he undertook at a personal level, much deeper than he had originally anticipated in recreating Baba Guru Nanak's journey. Before we meet him personally, allow me to introduce him to you all with a gist of his work in the form of a 25-minute abridged version, which has been specially curated for the audience today. Consider this offering as a mere preview of his visually stunning 24-part docuseries with over 20 hours of content informed by a deep study of historical texts and personally visiting more than 150 multi-faith sites mapping diverse beliefs and religions including Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, and North Jyotis. This extensive journey was undertaken over an exhaustive 18-month period on the road, culminating just before the world was held hostage by the infamous coronavirus. The team took another 15 months to sift through 50 terabytes worth of footage, what I would simply refer to as an extremely overwhelming and seemingly insurmountable mountain of data, to encapsulate and produce the spectacular docuseries. Baba Guru Nanak had travelled to various parts of the subcontinent, a majority of which are now part of Pakistan. His journey stretched from the mausoleum of Bahauddin Zakaria in Multan to the Hinglaj Nali Mandir caves in Balochistan, from Baba Farid's mausoleum at Pakpatan to Bara Chinar along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. Beyond researching, producing, and directing the docuseries, Amardeep has also published 2 amazingly splendid and illustrated books documenting remnants of Sikh legacy in Pakistan, which he has explored by retracing Baba Guru Nanak's travels and visiting 126 cities, towns, and villages spanning the length and breadth of Pakistan. At the onset of this project, Amardeep also created 2 preliminary documentaries peering warrior and peering soul, exploring the remnants of martial and spiritual legacy in Pakistan. The devotion and attention to detail, the synchronicity of the images, the allegorical referencing, the musical score, the storytelling, the captivating frames matching sensibilities, and the meaning-making devotees' eye in the books, earlier documentaries and the docu-series is a testament to their passionate, beautiful and sensitive labor of love. It is interesting and refreshing to know that on this special journey, Amardeep was not only supported by people who share the same footprints of faith and cultural legacy, history and heritage, but also steadfastly by extremely genuine and capable individuals of other faiths who believed in the message of his project, oneness of humanity. Without further ado, I present to you Allegory, a tapestry of Guru Nanak's travels.
The 15th century spiritual leader is a guiding force for many. He spent over 2 decades traveling to distant lands to engage in philosophical and social dialogues with people of diverse cultures and belief systems. Through the medium of words and music, he gracefully imparted experiential insights, fearlessly challenged the binary constructs of society, and relentlessly opposed gender, religious, racial, and class inequalities.
My name is Amardeep Singh. I retrace the life events of Guru Nanak as narrated in the earliest historical texts.
Guru Nanak Dev Ji ne हमको परम पिता परमात्मा का नाम बताया.
He had his own message of oneness of humanity, and that cut across all religions.
530 years ago, coming, on uncharted lands, but is still making such a big impact, an impact which not only had permanence, which was carried on.
Allegory is a revelation of a hidden meaning within a narrative. For time immemorial, individuals have been traveling to new lands to fulfill their personal motives. Alexander conquered nations. Marco Polo explored trade opportunities. Guru Nanak holds a distinction. He traversed vast geographies on an altruistic purpose to create an awareness of oneness. Guru Nanak wrote nothing about his personal life, but he did leave a large repository of experiential wisdom, which inspire many to remain as learners at every stage of their lives. Guru Nanak's travels cover 9 regions: Pakistan, India, Tibet, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan. We travel to these regions to unravel the allegory.
We have reached Nankana Sahib. Nankana, the word comprises of 2 words, Nanak and Ana. It's the coming of Nanak.
तौहीद की पंजाब से हिंद को एक मर्द कामिल ने जगाया ख्वाब से।
Several gurdwaras adorn Nankana Sahib, the most important of these being the Janamasthan, the birthplace of Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak in his early years started aspiring to experience places of various faiths which were then famous for pilgrimage congregations. He expressed this desire to Bhai Mardana, with whom he had a deep bond as they shared similar thought process.
Bhai Mardana was a long-time companion of Baba Guru Nanak. He played an integral part in the mission of Baba Guru Nanak to spread the message of humanity. Bhai Mardana was born in this village, now known as Nankana Sahib. He was born to a Mirasi family. At the age of 20 years, Baba Guru Nanak requested Bhai Mardana to accompany him on the spiritual journeys.
In 1504, at the age of 35 years, Guru Nanak embarks on a journey to awaken the soul of society from the slumber of ignorance. Bhai Mardana expressed his wish to visit the shrine of Baba Sheikh Farid Shakarganj at Pakpatan. Trailing Guru Nanak's footsteps, we travel to Pakpatan. Sheikh Ibrahim, also known as Sheikh Brahm, was the 12th successor of Baba Sheikh Farid's spiritual seat. Sheikh Ibrahim warmly welcomed and hosted Guru Nanak and Bhai Mardana, who thereafter stayed at Pakpatan for a few days.
The era of Hazrat Baba Fariduddin starts from 1173 to 1266, and the Sufi philosophy of the saint is all about oneness of creation.
Exactly, and that's exactly the philosophy of Guru Nanak also.
Right.
Because when he writes his verse on Japji Sahib, he starts it with Ik Omkar. The numeral 1 signifies oneness. And Baba Farid's verses are also enshrined in the Guru Granth Sahib. And as I'm standing on his mausoleum, I can read in Urdu, it's written, Farida Khalak Khalak mein, Khalak vase Rab mahe, Manda kisnu aakiye, Jaan tis bin koi na hai. It's exactly like I said.
Yes, yes.
बाबा जी का ते बाबा गुरु नानक का जिहड़ा तलक है रूहानियत का वो कहते इंसानियत जिहड़ा है ना वो सब तो बड़ा मजहब है। बाबा जी के श्लोक जिहड़े बाबा फरीदुद्दीन सरकार दे वो गुरु ग्रंथ दे विच ने वो मैं पेश कर फरीदा खाक ना निंदिए खाको जेद न पोए जुदियां पैरा हेठे मोया ऊपर होए फरीदा फरीदा फरीदा
Trailing Guru Nanak's footsteps, we travel to Puri and visit the iconic Jagannath temple. Jagan means universe and Nath means the creator. Following the past aboriginal system of worshipping nature, the idol of Jagannath continues to be only made in wood. This tradition was intended to respect nature as the supreme power.
Witnessing the aarti being performed at the Jagannath temple, Guru Nanak composed a hymn stressing on the importance of respecting nature.
कैसी यारती हो कैसी यारती हो भवखंड ना तेरी आरती अनहत शब्द वजंत पेरी गगन में थाल रव चंद दीपक बन तार कमंडल जनक मोती धूप मलयान लो भवन चवरो करे सगल बन राय फूलंत ज्योति कैसी आरती
Guru Nanak says the omnipresent is manifested within every aspect of nature. To continue tracing Guru Nanak's footsteps, we visit the Tibetan plateau. We head westwards to the basin of the Satluj River to visit the historic town of Saparang.
From Spiti Valley in India, Guru Nanak and Bhai Mardana reached Tibet at Bughi Kingdom in the region of Sapara. When Guru Nanak reached here, in these cave settlements resided a large population of the believers of Tibetan Buddhism.
Interestingly, this kingdom had a spectacular civilization which then disappeared mysteriously in the 17th century. During Guru Nanak's visit, this region was experiencing an evolution, the result of an amalgamation of belief systems and cultures. Guru Nanak says, even if one soars high after attaining supernatural powers, it is pale in comparison to the value of contemplation, the strength which leads to self-actualization. We travel to Iran to explore the memories of Guru Nanak. On reaching Tehran, we visit the Gurdwara, which was established in 1941 AD by the adherents of Guru Nanak. The Iranians call this Gurdwara Masjid-e-Hindan, the mosque of the people of Hind.
There is a lot of Gurbani in Guru Granth Sahib in Persian language, which proves that he definitely did come to Iran. We have many shabas, of course, one of them like Dunya Muqam Fani, which was recited by him, and which shows that he was well versed with this area and the language as well.
Guru Nanak, being intuitively multilingual, incorporated vernacular dialects of various regions to connect with the local people. In Iran, he sang a verse composed of Persian words.
बदबख्त हम तू बखील गाफिल बेनजर बेबाक नानक बगोयद जन तुरा तेरे चकरा
Humans indulge in greed and evil intentions. In humility, Guru Nanak says he finds happiness in the feet of those who are inclined towards divinity. Tracing Guru Nanak's footsteps, we travel to Afghanistan.
Kabul is the capital city of Afghanistan, which is nestled in a bowl-shaped valley. In different eras, it has hosted various cultures and religions like Buddhism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, Judaism. Presently, Kabul is predominantly Islamic.
After much effort, we were able to connect with Ustad Lali, descendant of Ustad Rahim Baksh, an Afghani Muslim singer who would devotedly sing verses from the Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikh scripture.
शक मोहब्बत ना निकाल का करते पास हुक्म का जाई साथे दरगे सच कबूल साहिब ने का मक्सी दुनिया देख लो दिल दरवानी जो करे दरवेश दिल रात शक मोहब्बत ना निकाल का करते
دا بابنکو چې په کوبل په پېښور ګرځېدو په منګال په غرونو وګرځېدو دا یې غوښتنه کړی دو چې یری دي چې مو ته بوم سکون کې وځي جامه شي بېله بېله نه چې تکې تکې پې وګرځېدا دا یې دوکې لوړ
Khalida Begum's dynamic personality, a combination of feminine softness and masculine fortitude, was remarkable. Contrary to accepted gender roles, when a male unravels his feminine aspects and the female her masculine aspects, it empowers them to achieve their maximum potential as humans. Guru Nanak says, in accord with the laws of creation, we are a composite of feminine and masculine energies. In Guru Nanak's footsteps, we travel to Kartarpur in Pakistan. It is estimated that between the start of the first Odyssey in 1504 AD, when Guru Nanak was 35 years, to the end of the fourth Odyssey in 1526, when he was 57 years, he had travelled far and wide for about 22 years.
The message of oneness that Guru Nanak spread during his travels is reflected at this site in Kartarpur.
Guru Nanak upheld the spark of universal oneness in a society where unity was smothered by animosity and discrimination. His cognizance is a ray of hope for a united world.
जहाँ की बुझती हुई निगाहों को जगमगाता है बामे नानक ना पाक कोई ना कोई ना पाक कोई ऊंचा ना कोई नीचा
this promising docu-series has to offer. The series is freely available online at thegurunanak.com. The episodes are uploaded on a weekly basis. There are 8 episodes which have been released so far. I have personally viewed the first few, and to say that I'm impressed would be an understatement. Thank you, Amardeep. So, Amardeep Singh claims to be an accidental author. Really, when I first heard him say that, I wondered that here is a man who left the corporate jungle to embark on a soulful journey to connect with his ancestral and spiritual roots, armed by passion, faith, undeterred perseverance, and anchored firmly by his wife's unwavering strength and support. Actually, I would more likely believe him if he referred to himself as an accidental banker. Having studied in prestigious schools, armed with degrees in engineering and business administration, Amardeep worked in the corporate sector for over 25 years, culminating his financial career as the head of revenue management in the Asia-Pacific region with American Express. But his heart often led him over the years to study history, philosophy, cultures. He even experimented with photography. By the way, the marvelous photography in his books is entirely his own. So perhaps it was fate preparing him for the eventual journey that lay ahead. It is said that if one has a pure intention and a bigger purpose in life, then the worldly forces and even divine energy unites to facilitate the pathway to success. Unfortunately, his wife, Dininder Kaur, is currently overseas and hence unable to join us this evening. Formally educated in fashion design, she is the co-director, co-scriptwriter, and music coordinator of the docu-series. She has also edited both the books authored by her husband. In fact, the whole family seems to be very invested in this project. The landing page for the docu-series has been created by their daughter, Dati Kaur. The 6.5 feet by 4.5 feet allegorical painting encompasses the entire life journey of Baba Guru Nanak, and the intentional presence of each and every element is symbolic. It is my pleasure to have Amardeep Singh here with us, an independent visual ethnographer and researcher, a person driven by the voice of his soul and self-belief and passion which impelled him throughout. Mr. Amardeep. Thank you for taking out time to share your insights and inspiration with us.
My pleasure, and I thank the Pakistan Embassy, Shanaf Sir, for hosting us this evening. Really appreciate it.
Oh.
Volume is to go up. Hello. Yeah.
Are we good?
Yeah.
So just to ensure we are all on the same page, the conversation with Amardeep would basically be around the following areas: the need, the journey, the process. What was the need to step out of his comfort zone and undertake such a challenging and massive project? What does the journey mean to him, and what he hopes it would mean to the others? And about the process, what was the action behind the scenes? So Amardeep here will tell us more about it. My first question to you, I'm very curious. Why abandon a brilliant corporate career at American Express and dedicate your life to researching the travels and teachings of Baba Guru Nanak? How did this transition take place? And what was the inspiration or the catalyst behind embarking on this transformative journey?
So first and foremost, a lot of people think, I often get this question asked as to why did you retire so early in life? I say, if you call this retirement, sorry, you don't know what retirement is. We are working harder than what we were working in the corporate world. My definition of creating wealth has changed. So earlier I was creating wealth for corporation in basis points, percentage points, in dollars and cents. I think we are still creating wealth. The wealth is the wealth for posterity. Because the definition has changed. And if you try and create any form of wealth, it will require labor. So I have not retired. I I've just transformed my career, that's it. Right? So we're working still 17 hours, in fact more than the corporate world, 17 hours a day. It's like me and my wife have not taken a Saturday, Sunday off for the last 3.5 years. It's 365, 24, that's the kind of commitment this is. And sometimes, your next question, sometimes, things are organic. I'm glad it's happened organically, because if you plan for everything, usually I think the life's fun and life's, those hidden, wow factors in the corners cannot be enjoyed if it's all about planning. So for me, what's really important is what I was vesting myself in while I was doing that 25 years of the corporate run. Right? And I think the life is more satisfying now, because if I would have been doing that corporate run till I would have reached the age of 60 years, personally I don't think I would have developed. Right? So, or my family would have developed. So we are really thankful. One thing has led to the other. All that we could control was focus on what's close to our heart. Because what's close to your heart will never give you blood pressure, will give you peace in the night, and rest is divine unfoldment. If you've chosen to do something, it will happen. And that's what has happened.
It is obvious that there is complete joy and investment in this whole project of yours, and it's just a difference. It's just a different perspective, a different lens from which you're looking at this.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the compelling need for you to revisit your ancestral footprint in Pakistan?
Well, that's a good question, because it all started from that very seed, the need to visit Pakistan, right? Which happened in 2014. But even before the seed is planted, you need to germinate the soil, right? You need to water the soil, put fertilizers inside it. And what people don't know is it's not binary. These things, if they were to happen binary and zeros and ones, I don't think they would grow up into such a large, vast forest of beauty, right? That you've been able to traverse in a short span of time. So what I'm trying to say is that my parents left what became Pakistan. They were from the Indus region in 1947. As much as all communities left, right? A lot of Muslims left from India, Hindus, Sikhs, Jains left from the other side. There was a mass swapping of population in 1947, and they landed in UP, in Uttar Pradesh. But from the age of 17 years, I was getting curious about why does my father insist that I should speak a language in the four boundaries of my home when I don't speak that language outside my home, and when I go into a school, which is an elitist school, I'm asked to only speak in English. So I'm confused between these three languages, English, Hindi, and by the way, I learned Urdu after my Pakistan work.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so
how long did it take you to learn Urdu?
4 weeks.
Oh wow!
So if you're passionate about something, it's going to happen. So the question was, why am I confused between these three languages? Why can't we just speak in English? Why do I have to speak Hindi and Urdu and then Punjabi at home? But that quest led me to the question, why do I look different? Why does my father look different? And who are we? So at the age of 17, started my parallel quest while I was preparing for engineering. It started with a fondness for the region of Indus. And I call this the fondness for the region of Indus because my knowledge of history was seeded there. And it started with trying to first know about you, yourself, your community, and then expanded into culture, anthropological studies, and other aspects of historical elements. And that kept expanding, then to a point where you got busy in your corporate career, and I kept my passions alive. I'm probably one of those few people from the finance industry who has never picked up a golf stick.
Yes, one of the very few.
So I'm, most of my friends when I was in the American Express and 25 years in the corporate world would invite me for golf, and I would say, you know what, I'm going to go in 6 hours on the golf course. I'd rather spend time in much more meaningful things here. So I was thinking very differently. And from there started the quest for spiritual aspects. One thing leads to the other, right? And then started the interest in musicology. And then came a point where in 2014 when I left my corporate career, which was actually for reasons which I think would be planned now, but at that time I was confused. Because if you run on a corporate mill for 25 years, and if the corporate mill stops, your mind kind of is still trying to run, right? And I'm trying to figure out what's happening to me. And the fact is, I was meant to do something else. Because when that corporate will stop, I asked myself this question, my father is no more, my mother is no more, I want to go and see the place of theirs in Kashmir in Pakistan. And that's where that seeding happened. The first journey that led to that first book, second journey led to this book, then 2 documentaries happened. These things took 4 years. 2 documentaries happened, but they were nothing to do with Guru Nanak. And thereafter in 2018, we started with this bigger project. So the layers have been just growing. And it's now that the forest is really becoming beautiful in terms of flowering. But behind it is about 25 to 30 years of work.
Of course. This is fate preparing you for what lay ahead. Can you help us understand what is the crux of your intention? What are you trying to convey through your docu-series? And also, why use allegory as a reference point for your project?
So I think the answer lies in the word allegory itself. So a lot of people, when we are doing this docu-series, me and my wife, Linda, who's an equal part in this, we have a lot of brainstormings. Is a very polite word to say, but we have a lot of tug of war in terms of what I believe and what she believes. But ultimately, we found that the energies come together in a beautiful work that happens, right? And we were struggling with this one word. What should we call this docu-series as? And in that lies the answer to the first part of the question. And I must give the credit to my wife, because this was in the list, and she nailed it down to allegory. Because allegory is a tough word. Often even now in my community, people ask me, why we kept this name, we can't understand. Well, I say, you know what? Baba Nanak has to be understood, so you will have to understand. I mean, you can't deviate from these things, right? The fact is, when we look at Guru Nanak today, or any religious figure, the saints, the people, the spiritual masters have a vision, and then we form boundaries, and then we define those things the way we look at it. But I think they had a very different intention. Right? So when you look at it from their perspective, Guru Nanak's life today is laden with myths, mythologies, physical impressions through which the society wants to see him. That's a very shallow approach of seeing him, right? Or trying to recognize him. Now, when you look at the word allegory, allegory is a deeper metaphor inside the story of a person in a longer narrative. It's the revelation of a hidden meaning, right? So if you look at the messages that he's giving, so for instance, we are here with the Pakistani community, and often if you go to a place which is very well known, Punjab Sahib Gurdwara, where they say there's an impression of Guru Nanak's hand on a rock.
I have seen that.
Okay, if you see that, now the allegoric meaning of that impression has to be understood. Is Baba Nanak worthy of only denting rocks, putting his back as an impression on rocks, which is what he's been reduced to today?
You're taking a very non-traditional
It is, because when I read him, I don't get that message. He's never written that I'm denting rocks. He's denting your hearts. He's denting the hardened souls. And that's when he leaves an impression. That's the allegory. And that's what we're trying to do out of this, is trying to unbox Nanak, leave him with a new work, with a world that should understand him for posterity, hopefully through these visuals, which are a National Geographic kind of an attempt. Because what you've seen is just a 24-minute. It's the 20 hours of content in 24 series, right? So when you go inside this, each country you start seeing it, you get attracted to the visuals. And mind wants to go very skimming, right? It wants to skim on the stuff. So fine, your mind is getting attracted to visuals, the music. Deep down, it's the messaging is what we are trying to focus our energies on.
And that
we're not trying to preach. That's the thing.
That's pretty obvious, and the messaging is what resonates with you in this project. It's not a surface level traditional view. It's the messaging that resonates with you, and that's the lens you're taking. Could I ask you, what part of Baba Guru Nanak's narrative inspired you to undertake such an arduous journey riddled with unending challenges and multiple risks? And also, how did it impact your life?
So what part, keep that second part of it aside in case I forget. What part attracted us to do this is, first and foremost, it started off with these books leading to the next question. At the end of 2018, I had spent 4+ years out of corporate world. I had accepted the fact that I'm dead meat for corporate world. Because the only question that the corporate will ask you is, tell us, Mr. Singh, what have you done last, right?
Creating wealth for
And I'm saying
posterity.
that I'm creating wealth, not dollars and cents, I'm creating for posterity. They're going to say, thank you very much. There's the goal, right? So that's how the corporate world works. And so I was confused. But then deep inside me was this question about, you are too far away from the corporate. There's no point looking there. It's good to burn your bridges. And I'm glad I burned my bridges, but I have no way to look back. I'm looking in front.
Lots of courage here.
I mean, yeah, courage is like, if you're a maverick, that's all you have. There's no option. Let's put it this way. Sometimes the best of the situations are when you have no options. You burn the bridges looking in front. And in 2018, I'm sitting on my dining table in September, and I had a friend visiting me from Delhi, and I'm asking him, how do you think would be our attempt to make a narrative of Guru Nanak and his life, because I believe we have boxed him into a faith. And Guru Nanak's narrative is about multi-faith, because he is visiting the sites 22 years of his life. He travels with his Muslim friend. He travels to Muslim sites, Hindu sites, Islamic sites, Hindu sites, Buddhist sites, Jain sites. The traditions of Nath yogis, which was so prevalent from Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and right up till Nepal, that Nath yogis, the Kanfata yogis, he's having multiple dialogues with the yogis, right? People that can speak that tradition at that time. That's wiped off, that's finished. And then my question was, can Guru Nanak's philosophy also get wiped out in some time to come if we don't actually protect it in a manner that we can rationally try and put it forward? And if I knew that I'm not a preacher, and I don't want to be a preacher. That's not the way I look at myself. So the question then is, how do you travel on his footsteps and go and experience, potentially try and experience what he would have experienced 550 years before? And the story then has to be told from the sites that he went to. Today in my community, the Sikhs are trying to tell the story. They are not able to tell the story beyond a Gurdwara. And none of these Gurdwaras existed when Guru Nanak was traveling. So then the question was, should we go to these places and then try and tell the story from there? Because we can try and understand Guru Nanak from his, as I said in the docu-series, in that 24-minute clip right in the beginning, Guru Nanak wrote nothing about his life. But he wrote a large amount of spiritual wisdom. So then comes the spiritual wisdom, we try and intertwine it. So that's what we felt. So the second part of the question.
The impact.
The impact. That's a very interesting question that you asked.
Big question.
Yeah, because a lot of people think that you are on a spiritual journey and you come out to be a person with a halo behind your head. There's nothing like that. You're doing filmmaking. You're going across 9 countries in a span of 18 months with a crew that you've got to feed. The crew has to capture the moments. We are trying to think of the situations, getting the interviews. If one day you don't get a permission to get into a site, there's a cost that's running behind you. And these are not commercially funded projects. These have been done by the support of well-wishers who have seen our works develop over the years. It's their hard-earned money which has been put there. When I've appealed, they've come forward and believed in me, right? They put the money there. So then I'm actually saying, why shouldn't this be done, right? And
why
in the
not
process, and in the just a minute, in the process when you're actually going through this journey, people think that you are a sage. There's nothing like that. You are going through a very complicated process to deliver something for the rising of the collective consciousness of the society. And like a seesaw, something has to be given for something else to rise. And the way I look at it is, we have to give ourselves down for hoping the collective consciousness through these narratives rises. So there is nothing spiritual inside this. I have developed my skill sets. I can say I've become an author, I've become a filmmaker. What I will become next, I don't know. But the skills are going to take me forward. But the question is, if people have asked this question, is there a spirituality development inside this? I think I'm understanding Guru Nanak better. Have I become a better person in that? I'm filled with a lot of negativity still. I'm far from a perfect person. So that's what I would like to do.
So another little curiosity, did this focus shift subtly and organically, and like how did it morph from this personal journey of greater self-awareness or greater self-discovery, this universal journey of inspiration and reflection, because the work is inspiring.
So that, I think in some bits and pieces I've answered that question because, as I said, in the seesaw example, one thing has led to the other, right? And I'm glad it's happened this way. And that's where I leave my answer is, I'm very happy at the end of 8 years, it's happened this way. Because you know what, sometimes I think, I could have done a PhD with volume 1 of my book. But you know what, to do a PhD would have required 6 years of my life inside a university, and all I know what is Dr. Amardeep Singh. The people would have called me on the stage as Dr. Singh, right? But you know what, I'm not running after those doctorates because in 8 years, we've done 2 books, 2 other documentaries, and a 24-episode docu-series, which when we seeded as a concept and we took it to US, and the Chapman University Board of Directors actually evaluated this project. They initially said, this project cannot be done in today's world. Because accessing these countries, going inside the places, one is, it's not possible. They said literally not possible today because we're divided. And the second thing is the cost that it's going to actually incur. They estimated something like $25 million. We're not at a fraction of a cost just because we believed in it, right? So I am actually happy it's the way it's happened is because I could have taken multiple PhDs in this. But imagine there would have been 6 plus 6, 12, and probably another 6 years, 18 years to get doctorates. I think I'm happy the way the pace this is happening is because I'm answerable to myself. I'm not answerable to the projections of the world. In my mind, I think we have done what has to be done for the University of Humanity.
So let's talk a little bit more about this project.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about so much work that's gone into it, and in terms of time and effort and money, everything. And a production of a docu-series of this scale, it is easily comparable to the productions of Nat Geo or BBC projects. Amardeep Singh is not an organization. And this is undoubtedly a massive undertaking. How did you do it?
Short answer is just believe in yourself, just walk the path. To be honest, in the 18 months that we were traveling, I can tell you there have been moments where we thought this project has to be abandoned, it cannot be done. There are clear-cut moments because we've not had fundings behind us, stacked behind it. Sometimes there are funding challenges. Sometimes you had AK-47 shooting a drone. Sometimes accessibility stops. Sometimes you go into a temple or a Sufi shrine or a Gurdwara itself, right? And you suddenly realize that you are being barred to get inside to film. Multiple points, this feeling inside us has been, ain't gonna happen. And you just believe and you keep moving forward. And there's some divine energy at every crossroad that comes and enables it. Because what we have done as a filming in 50 terabytes of data, you've only seen a small bit of it, right? Each episode goes deep inside Afghanistan. We mapped from north to south. You cannot get inside Afghanistan now. Timing was perfect, right? So the point I'm trying to say is that you just need to, in all these projects, whether it was a first book, second book, or this one, just believe a concept and just walking on the path. And then you cut yourself from the world. A lot of times, I am very challenged because a lot of people think that I don't engage much, I'm not involved with them, I don't reciprocate because you've got to understand this energy is taking you so rapidly, so many people come in front of you, you've got to maximize in those situations for the bigger cause. It's not that you're holding something as negative aspect from not engaging with people, it's just the priority is requiring you to focus elsewhere. And when you prioritize and you move forward, you just got to believe in divine, that's it.
As a viewer, when I saw your work, your books, the first few episodes of the docu-series, it was mind-blowing, and to me it seemed very poetic and soulful, and so I wanted to know that in this journey of the soul, which I thought of it in my head, oh, this is the journey of the soul, what were the practical difficulties? Please demystify for us the viewer's perception versus on-the-ground reality, like what were the geopolitical restrictions and challenges like? How did you even manage to research and film in certain areas? How did that come about?
So what you will see, I keep getting a lot of feedback coming in from people as the 8 episodes have been released on thegurunanak.com. By the way, it's thegurunanak.com, it's not gurunanak.com. So it's thegurunanak.com, you go there, 8 episodes are released, we're going through a sequential journey. And a lot of people it's freely available, a lot of people actually are seeing it around the world and writing to us. By the way, we've disabled all comments, we don't want to hear from people, right? Someone has to write to us, they find out our address, they find out the number, they reach to us. Every day I get about 10 to 12 such messages. Those are the real messages, right? Those are meaningful messages you want to see. But when the process that you're going through this whole journey, so just repeat that question again, I lost the thought.
No, I just said, what were the grounds?
Yeah, correct. So when you're going through this process, what people are writing to us, and that's what I was trying to say here to start answering this question, was that they are saying it seems so seamless. You are going from Afghanistan into Pakistan and emerging into India, from there going to Bangladesh. It's so seamless, right? And my answer to them is, this is the story of Guru Nanak. This is not my story. I can tell you my story because you're alluding to that now, and I'll put a structure to that. Some other day, if I'm still breathing, will be the day for my story. But that's after all these stories have ended. Right now you have to keep yourself as a host and at an arm's length distance. I'm not going to tell you a story that in Afghanistan and Ghazni, my drones were getting fired by AK-47. That's not the story. Yeah? So, the structure, what we went through as a challenge, because you are seeing a similar story. The structure is the following challenges that we faced. Three layers of challenges there. First and foremost challenge is, you're sitting in Singapore and you say, I want to do this project. How are you going to get the entry to the country? Okay, let's start with this practical problem. There's no Afghanistan embassy in Singapore. There are thousands of challenges around this, how to get into Afghanistan. As an individual, I'm not a National Geographic, I'm not being represented by Singapore government to go inside and do this project. I'm just going like a maverick inside. How will you get inside? Okay, I've done 2 books in Pakistan. I can tell you, the moment I will apply to Pakistan, sorry, they see people are here, but I can tell you, the fact is that I've done 2 books and applied to Pakistan on a visa to go into filming. I'll be put into a certain category, and that'll be 1-year process to just get the approval, even after having done so much of work.
And yet you were able to complete 2 books in a short span of time.
You go to Tibet, you can't carry cameras to Tibet to film. And so on, the problems continue. Makkah, Medina, as a non-Muslim, I can't enter. And so the problems become so complicated. So at a geographical level, how would you get inside the countries? First solve for that problem. And I can tell you, one thing has led to the other. You'll be surprised to know, my Pakistani and Iraqi visa was enabled in Pakistan. And I'm not a Pakistani. Now, how did this happen? It's a divine intervention. Stories I can tell about how did it happen, but that's how it happens. That's one level of problem. Second level of problem, get into a country. There's a site there. Okay, I need to go to Multan, and I want to go to Hazrat Shah Sabra's site. I want to go to Balochistan to the Himlaj temple. Jagannath temple you saw so seamlessly in Puri. Go to Jagannath temple or any of these sites I'm talking about. They're controlled by boards. They're controlled by institutions. You go with cameras and drones and say, I'm going to actually film this. Who's going to allow you? It's a practical problem. Now, you actually, if you think you've got the approval of the agencies or the governments right at the top, that approval does not hold at the sites. There are practical problems that you have to navigate through at each site. And each day that you lose, you've got a team behind you. They're running in dollars. There's a driver, there's a lodging, there's a flight cost which happened, there's a cameraman's cost. Each day of delay adds up to your cost. That's the second level of problem. The third level of problem is about the narrative itself. What narrative will you take? As I told you, this is heavily anchored in trying to unravel the allegoric and metaphoric messages of Nanak, but through a journey. Guru Nanak today, sometimes I jokingly say, my community has not made him stop travel. Today there is a video on YouTube, Guru Nanak in USA. After my documentary came out, someone called me up from Vancouver, and he's been a part of this docu-series and he's a principal there. He called me up, he said, Amardeep, someone came, a child's parent came today, and you know what? It's hilarious. He said, Paisa, wo documentary dekhi hai, I've seen that documentary. But he's missed the point. Nanak has also come to Canada. Where do I stop it? Or where do I take him and where do I say, where's the line? These are men of faith traveling. With their faith and in their minds, Guru Nanak is traveling. That's not the narrative I'm here to play. I'm trying to create a historical documentation through which we want to understand Nanak and the message of oneness amongst different faiths. So therefore, where is the narrative going to be like? Because Guru Nanak has written nothing about his life. So there are sources available, but you have to then invest yourself for so many years to understand and have a narrative in your mind. I can tell you, and I'll stop there to answer this question, I can tell you upfront, we have made a humble attempt using the oldest historical sources which were written between 65 years after Guru Nanak's life up till 120 to 130 years after his life. That's the sources they've used. But remember, they are written by men of faith also, because Nanak has not written it himself. So there will be inherent biases, variances, and in today's world, when we are creating something, we are also men of faith, humans. So don't anchor to this narrative, because I know this is going to be a digital narrative for the future generations to come. They will refer to this. This is an encyclopedia of Guru Nanak. But keep one thing in mind, I too am a human. And my team too are humans. And they would have made a lot of mistakes, right? But we are trying here to understand Guru Nanak. And the sites therefore lose relevance after a certain point of time. They are only anchorage points. So these are the three levels of problems that we have faced. And at the end of the day, you know what, when people are seeing it and consuming it, consumption is very high. This is the last problem right now we have, is that when you offer something to the world free of cost, you always say the value diminishes to zero. Because now you have to lift the value from there, right? And I'm going through that problem because everyone who supported me, when I was on the stage in the earlier days, trying to see this project, it was my passion. I was standing in communities of 50, 100 people trying to say we need to do this. People came forward and believed in me. But no one asked a return on investment. No one said, I want 25% return on this money I'm giving you. They gave it for the love of Guru Nanak. And today, if I'm going to charge for it, then I've actually taken away the faith that they had in me, right? So we've opened this for the world, but there's no revenue in it. And our path ahead is still expanding. And there's no one else really doing these things. I'm not trying to say that I'm the only one doing it, but really trying to do these out-of-the-box narrative, so the problem continues. And these are the challenges.
So from your docu-series, I've noticed that there are two parallel journeys that are being showcased. One is the journey of the narrative, and one is your personal journey. And you, again, I've noticed that you exercise extreme caution in distancing yourself from the journey and ensuring that the philosophy of Baba Guru Nanak shares the it does not share limelight with anything. That's the message that's carried forward. I also noticed another commonality, and that was that Baba Guru Nanak chose a Muslim friend, a Muslim musician, to accompany him on a 22-year-long journey. That was the concept of just connecting to somebody at a human level, sharing the same perspective. And with your work also, and we'll talk about it later in detail when we talk about your team, but you also chose a predominantly Pakistani Muslim team to support you, and maybe that's just a coincidence, but this beautiful intermingling of faiths and mutual support to each other is very refreshing in today's world, because faith has unfortunately been exploited, politicized, and reduced to being ritualistic and divisive. Your intention appears to be attracting people beyond your faith and inviting them to join in your journey. What is that unifying factor in this interfaith concept of solidarity? And what is the common denominator which you felt would attract humanity at large towards this project?
So I think if you do what is right, the appeal will be there across sections. The challenge, of course, will be how do you unbox it and take it beyond your boundaries? That always is a challenge. And I will not say this. It's Professor Qayyumi, who was the ex-finance minister of Afghanistan, and we thank him for being there in Afghanistan in 2019. I didn't know him. And when we reached out to him through some contacts when I was in Pakistan filming for this, you know what? Beauty is this where the divine aspect comes in, and I'll talk about the question that you had. I called up Professor Kayumi, I got introduced, and he says, you know what, it's a beautiful project that we should do. And I'm reminded of my father-in-law, who would fondly sing the Kalam of Baba Nanak. Now, how do you kind of put that in perspective, right? So what I'm trying to say is that in this whole journey as you're going through, the messaging, of course, then is that Guru Nanak did not differentiate. His word starts with ik, right? Often, I've not read any one book in English that I think defines. I'm not trying to be egoistic here. I am just telling you what I've perceived, right? I have not read a single book because English is an acquired language. It's not our Indic culture. It's not a language that our forefathers grew up with. British gave it to us. We speak well in English today. But the word ik that has been interpreted has been interpreted in the form of how the Britishers interpreted it in the Bible. One God. And we try to understand Guru Nanak's one ik, which is the first numeral that he starts with anything is. I don't think he's talking about God. He's talking about oneness. Oneness is connecting through as an ecosystem as one, right? And that reflects in his pursuits. He's traveling with Bhai Mardana. It might be, as you said, it's interesting that a Muslim was traveling with him. I don't think in their mind they were looking at it that way, that Muslim or a Hindu or a Sikh. They were not. Bhai Mardana was born in Nankana. Probably he must have been his next door neighbor, or may have been in the next village, I don't know. But that's how they grew up. It was one society.
But it was very accepting.
Absolutely. And now imagine 22 years he's traveled. Do you think their food practices, their so-called touchability, non-touchability, doing this, doing that in the different faiths, ye kar diya to theek nahi hai. Do you think those boundaries would have existed for them for 22 years when they traveled? And as they've gone to different places of different faiths, how did they go inside them? What is the message that they're giving without creating conflicts and bringing it all together? That's the beauty of Nanak's journey, and I think that was worthy to actually do it.
And so I noticed with you also, you often speak about adherents of Baba Guru Nanak, not Sikhs. You are very inclusive that way also. And so in breaking these concepts, Baba Guru Nanak broke the concepts of all these barriers of faith and geography with his concept of inclusivity. How does the notion of a syncretic culture, how has it intrinsically appealed to you? And how has it galvanized this project?
Yeah, so I think you picked up an interesting thing that I think it came out today also in this, I've used it once, adherence of Guru Nanak, right?
I picked it up from you only.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. So look, I am a follower of the Sikh faith, as you call it ism, right? Today religions are isms. Isms are boundaries that we define around the beliefs that we have in our mind. But the belief in your mind is porous. It's always questing for something. It's going here and there, right? And in that process, the thing with Guru Nanak has been that people have watched him, I say always. And I ask this, I'm not going to answer that question in a traditional manner. I will ask a question by posing another question that I've asked my mind all the time. Okay? So in the episode 7, we have delved into Kabirji in UP. Kabir and Guru Nanak were contemporaries. Okay? And some historians say the two met. Some say they didn't meet. But what matters is that a large repository of writing, just like Baba Farid's writings in Pakpatan, it was Baba Nanak who collated it and brought it into Punjab. And the first time the oral tradition got documented in black and white was in the Granth Sahib in the sixth scripture. Similarly, Kabir's writings from UP were brought into Punjab and consolidated into this 1430 pages of the Granth Sahib. Right? Now, I ask myself this question often because I was born in a place called Gorakhpur, 25 kilometers from the place where Kabirji died. And I've been there many times, and I've always wondered that Kabir is so porous. Kabir can be sung in Bengal, Bangladesh, Pakistan. I've heard people singing at Sachal Sarmat's site in Pakistan. Kabir is being sung at Baba Farid's place. I've heard him sung in Qawwalis and so on and so forth. But he's so porous. And here are two people who are contemporaries. From a philosophy point of view, both philosophies have the power, equitable power, right? And that's why Nanak brings in the two verses, what is the word in Punjab? Punjab is where they get consolidated. And then I say, today Kabir can be sung anywhere, but Guru Nanak cannot be sung beyond Gurdwaras. Because he's been bound by the isms.
Okay,
so just one second, just coming to that. So with that question, why I asked this question? Why? What have we done to Guru Nanak? And then when I look back at our history, in this book, I have been inside Pakistan, and I say it's a community of Nanak Panthis. I've dedicated 110 pages to that community across Sindh and Balochistan. They are not like me. They're like Dada Reva Chand, Santosh Kumar. They're not Santosh Singh. They're not Dada Singh. They don't wear a turban, but they are adherents of Nanak across the entire Indus belt. Who am I with a Punjabi descent or a Punjabi background to say Nanak only belongs to me and will only be defined by the boundaries of Gurdwaras? Nanak did not define it that. Kabir did not define it that. And therefore, when we look at our traditions that are passing back, what my fathers used to tell us, what our forefathers used to tell us, Nanak was intertwined along the entire Indus belt. That's why the Sindhi people accepted him. We have defined him who he is in the ism today. And so therefore, it is important to unbox them. And that's why we are always going down the word adherents of Guru Nanak. Because I am not doing a documentary on Sikhism. And people, while my audience will be Sikhs because of the natural first absorbers of Guru Nanak, but the fact is Guru Nanak needs to be understood by the wider societies. Why should the Muslims know him when the Muslims have spent so much time with him?
But I think this is a common malady of today's world, that people have started boxing their religions instead of sharing. They've just started keeping into themselves the very, very narrow-minded view. Okay, just a couple of quick questions, and then I would really love for you to introduce your team. You've spoken about creating a greater awareness by imbibing the concept of oneness. You've also spoken about isms. So interestingly, I had a question for you. I wanted to know what is, just an easy answer, to what the difference would be between monoism and monotheism.
Oh, I think I alluded to that earlier. So I often say that Guru Nanak, so all the books that I've read in English, I have always wondered, after I really started understanding Guru Nanak, the ik meant oneness, that everything is one ecosystem. Be a woman or a man, we are intertwined. My energy out here today is going to affect you. Your energy is going to, from that audience, is going to affect me in my ability to give the answer. Singapore's energy is going to affect the neighbor's energy, right? And so forth. We're all intertwined. And he's talking about that oneness, right? That is monism. Because Guru Nanak himself says that what is the difference between me and you? Now, I can say me and you, or me and you. Is that you a he or a she? He's not defining it, right? So the point is, monism once becomes one ecosystem, that oneness, all the books that I've read, which are English books, and I've read some of our own spiritual traditions, Indic traditions, translations, they go down that path, right? But the moment you bring it into another language, this concept of monism is not understood by the English authors, and they've always written as monotheism. Yes. Monotheism is God is one, you as a creation is different from God, and you cannot be God, God cannot be you. But Nanak is not saying that. Nanak is saying nothing. Kabir says that, and Kabir's writing is in Granth Sahib. Khalak, 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 me khalik. It is within you, and you are within it. That is monism.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And I've understood, it has pained me that most fundamental monism word has not been understood And we therefore I read on internet, books and other things. I said, we missed the point of trying to understand.
Okay, so now just want to know more about your team, and I know that you've traveled to many different countries and interacted with a diverse variety of people. Would you like to share any profound story with your interpersonal interactions in Pakistan? Or
Well, I mean,
just something that really resonated with you, that really precious memory?
Absolutely. At a macro level, I would say this kind of a project it cannot be done by one person or one family. It is a handiwork of many people who have come together. Many people, right? And I think I can see the team being displayed here, but before that I come down, many people ask me about stories from the field. Many people who have embraced us. In the moment, mostly. And I often say this, every city, every country that you've been to, either you've got a son or a sister or a father, or a mother or a brother or sister, everywhere now. It's they who made this project, not us. We just went with the vision. And since we're talking to a Pakistani community, I'm so obliged to the entire population, the Awam of Pakistan, because everyone has embraced us. Everyone. Now, have there been no challenges? Absolutely, there have been immense amount of challenges. At a government level, at institutional levels, and that will happen everywhere. That's got nothing to do with Punjab, Pakistan. Because I think we're living in a world today where you will be first starting with a point of suspicion. Your intent will not be understood. People at the grassroots level understand and they want to embrace each other. So you will have to navigate the infrastructural, macro level issues in every country. That's not unique to any one country. But it's the people who embrace you. And the people when they embrace you, that's where the faith in humanity actually becomes, it gets magnified because they are the ones who do this work. So the one thing I'll say is that, when we were, so I've got this, a sister now in Rawalpindi. We're talking from Pakistan's perspective, Sylvia Bair. If I go to Islamabad, Rawalpindi, I can't stay in a hotel. I have to stay with her, right? But whenever actually we've been there, whether it's been 2 o'clock in the night, we're coming in from Palachinar back after filming, or it's 4 a.m. in the morning, I have to just call up Sylvia. And her doors are always open for us. We're always there at her home. So much so, we talk about Kamran, Fazal who's here today, we talk about him. But when Kamran was being brought into Singapore during the COVID times, and he was very challenged, he went through a lot of challenges to get his employment pass because large organizations were not getting employment passes. And we being a very small entity, were able to get his employment pass. And he was coming here, the day he had to board his flight, he was at the airport and he was asked, he was told he cannot board the flight because Pakistan has certain kind of regulations that requires the passport clearances. Right? I'm just telling you what happened. So I'm kind of lost. I said, you know what, we've got this 3-day window in which he has to land because COVID restrictions were requiring passes, you have to come in that time. I said, the clock is ticking by. If he doesn't come, that's it. Right? And so I called up Sylvia and it's about 5 a.m. in the morning. And he's at the airport at 8 a.m., right? And he's saying, Paji, I can't board the flight. So I'm calling him, I'll call up Sylvia. I said, Sylvia, I've got a problem here. He said, brother, just wait for me. Let me just get up. Let me just get my energies together. And half an hour later, she calls him. You know what, Amardeep? You have got some divine energies working with you all the time. He says, my milkman just came in right now. Right? Milkman just came in right now. And the milkman, I told him, she said, Baji, तुम्हारी शक्ल आज बड़ी free लग रही है. I'm seeing your face is very looking down. And she said, yeah, Amardeep, he called up from Singapore and his editor cannot get on the flight and he's very disturbed. And it is apparently some stamp that has been given, some clearance stamp or something. And that milkman says, you know what, that entire office, my village works there. Right? And the next he called, Sylvia says, call up Kamran and tell him to call up now. So I tell Kamran to call up at home. And the milkman is there. The milkman says, come to the office at 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, Kamran in the office. And the villagers are there. They are employed there. It's just a matter of moving the files, right? He's gone through a process and the files move fast. Now these stories are umpteen all over. Right? I look at this, it's the people who have made this project.
Please introduce us to your trans-border pontificate.
Okay, so of course my wife is not there, I need to talk about myself, but she's a real pillar of support, and I must say, without her, we would have we have very intense discussions which Kamran actually is due to now having stayed with us, but we always come up with the best outcomes for the projects, right? But they are always intense in terms of the output of the project. Salman Alam Khan is our son in Lahore. He's our son, literally. Someone who I bumped into in the making of my second book, and he and I connected. Young boy, about 27 years old. This is a very young team. 27 years old, young team creating a National Geographic kind of a quality. That's Salman Alam Khan is from Lahore, and he traveled with us to 7 countries. And he did not travel with us in India and Bangladesh because of his Pakistani nationality, he could not do that. But that's him, and I must applaud him because that time when we seeded the project, way back in 2018 end, he was the only one videographer that we could afford because we didn't have the budgets. Slowly our budget started increasing, so in India we had a larger team. But the entire thing that you see in the Islamic countries, Pakistan and other places, one man has held a Canon 300, a GoPro, a drone, a small GH5 camera, and navigated through the whole challenges. Right? One man. Ultimately, you will actually otherwise have 5 to 10 people just holding cameras. And I remember I won't tell one story. We were at 19,000 feet at Tibetan Plateau. And at Tibetan Plateau, his breathing, because he was struck with altitude sickness, and he was throwing up. And this was his last country. And we had to film at Kailash and come back. And we had to take a decision. He said, this guy's started vomiting, he's got altitude sickness, he's got to descend rapidly, we'll have to abandon the project. And he said, but at that height, holding a 5 kg camera is like holding a 15 kg camera, right? Because the air is also there and it's thrown up. So he turns around and he says this, Amardeep Sahab, I have worked with you for 7 countries in both. Now at this last moment, if you say abandon, my entire life I will repent. Don't do it, because I know we can't come back to Tibet easily. Now, when I look back, he said the guy took risk on his life. We didn't have a big team out here with stretchers and other things, people take insurance and all, we just going like average, right? So thank you to him. Deep is our cinematographer, and Pramod, we had a bigger team in India because by the time we had raised some money. So they are the ones who actually went with us. The beauty out here is Muslims, Hindus and Sikhs are working together for Guru Nanak's Tapestry. They work with us over the entire India and Bangladesh. That's Kamran. I want to thank Kamran. Kamran sitting here. Kamran is from south of Punjab in Pakistan, from a village called Rajapur, and he stumbled upon editing. And I look at him, this team has come together by chance. I can tell you, we've not had anyone apply to our organization for interviews. We just believe and we say, come on. That's how it's happened. Every one of them. And he was referred by Salman. I said, Salman, I need a guy. And he says, Kamran. Kamran is again a young guy, 27 years old. He's been staying with us. So we are so lean that even to hire an office and to hire a flat is adding a cost to this project, right? He stays with us for the last, how many months? 14 months. He's staying in our home.
But you mentioned that he's been an integral part in the editing, and that is completely amazing.
He's staying with us because I simply say if I have to get an office space outside, if I have to pay for his apartment, I have to raise that much of money.
Yeah.
Where am I going to get the money from? This is a non-commercial project, right? So the only thing I will say about Kamran is a film, you can make it or break it in the editing. Sure. It's all that 50 terabytes of data. We were crazy enough with this team traveling outside for 18 months, getting the data inside, throwing it into a drive and bringing it to Singapore. Finally, when Corona shut down the world, our filming was over. Timing was perfect. We came here, we started putting a structure around this whole thing. 50 terabytes of data, if anyone understands maze of data. You will have organizations going through the data to put structures around it. And here's one man trying to do this. Pakistan, and let's see people out here, Husana ji, I'd say, you've got talent sitting there. And I request the Pakistan establishment to recognize these people. Lift them up because you've got talent sitting there. I would like to see each one of them grow into something that they look back. It was Guru Nanak's project that took us to our trajectories to an exponential growth. So that's him. That's our daughter with the artwork, Radhi Kaur, she's a visual artist. She's done a Bachelor of Fine Arts, so she was at home and I said, you've got to make this art piece. It's a massive art piece. And we started telling our thoughts to her, me and my wife. And she looked at the whole 24 episodes. And she came back and she says, don't tell me what you guys want to do. I will do what I have to do. Right? And what she did, what we really liked about it, she's not depicted Guru Nanak in it. But she's picked up an element from his story in every place. Nature, science, human elements. And he's brought Kabir, Fareed, all stories together in these forms. Makkah, Medina, and that, look at the painting. And she did this in a span of 2 months. And when we took it to the person to frame it, it's there in our home. I look at it, there's so much detail up there. And how much time did this artist take to do it? And me and my wife looked at him and asked him, you tell us, you're a person from the industry, how many months did it take? Just minimum 6 to 7 months. And she did it end to end 2 months, right? So
Your family is on an accelerated program for sure. Okay, so we had a lot of nice conversation.
So in fact, I just wanted to, sorry, this is the main thing. You did ask this question about, you said
yes,
strands, right?
Yes.
You said there are 2 strands running in this docu-series. There's a story about Guru Nanak, and then there is parallel, you are tracing that journey, and there's a parallel journey of me going on his path as a host.
Yes.
But we kept our story away. But my mind is on that journey and it's asking a lot of questions. So what you hear as a male voice in this series, apart from the Alama Iqbal's couplet and the end couplet at Kartarpur, which was sung by some other artist, but everywhere that Guru Nanak's voice is singing, that's Satminder Bodal. And he's representing, without personifying Guru Nanak, we are representing whenever Guru Nanak's message is coming out through his verse. Salima Khwaja is from Lahore, and she's the vocalist who's representing the soul of my world, of my soul. Her voice is representing my soul, because I'm also on a journey, so I'm looking at things in present contemporary times, I'm asking questions, I'm reflecting on certain things, where they're broken, where they're working well, and I'm not going to give an answer because I'm not a preacher. But it's her voice which will sing Guru Nanak's words, and through that we'll try and find the answer. That's the allegory we're trying to reveal, right? And of course we have Ustad B.S. Narayan who sang, there are Baba Fareed, Kabir, because Guru Nanak has gone into these places. We are bringing them inside also. There are 14 such saints of the Indian subcontinent. Late B.S. Narayan Sahib sang those verses. But I must tell you that the challenge in this layer of group of people, Ustad B.S. Narayan, he liked his voice. It took us, he had stopped singing for the last 1.5 years. It took us 1.5 years we recorded with someone else and then we shelved that entire recording because we didn't find the soul in it. But we wanted B.S. Narayan Sahib to sing. And for 1.5 years he had not sung because he had had a severe heart attack. Finally he agreed to sing. And he sang and 2 weeks later he passed away. That's the story. So this is the last rendition he's done for 14 saints of the Indian subcontinent. Baba Fareed, Kabir, Jaidev, Namdev, they're all a part of this intertwined story. And Salima Khwaja and Satminder Bodal, I want to tell this very interesting story. We were a bit maniacal, right, in terms of the details.
Salima is a lawyer by profession.
She's a lawyer by profession. And she has learned music from descendants of Bhai Mardana in Pakistan. Bhai Ghulam Chand, he's the one who, he's no more, but she's learned from him. So she's not got a DNA of Bhai Mardana, who was a lifelong companion of Guru Nanak, but she has learned it, she's acquired the talent. We had, for these 2 artists, we had our structure of saying that whatever verse in whichever rag has been sung by Guru Nanak, you will have to sing it in that rag. So if it is sung in Dhanasari rag, you will have to sing it in Dhanasari rag. If it is sung in Asara, you will have to sing it in Asara. Now that's a mandate that we have. Now here's the challenge. Satinder Bondar is a young lad, 27 years old, and he sings like cream, just without any instruments. And we said no harmoniums. You find there's no harmonium inside the lessons. And we said harmoniums will not be there because the moment you put a harmonium, your voice is anchoring on something, and your voice needs to be on its own. And when we did that, we found Satinder could do that. Now the challenge was with Salima. Salima is a great artist. We heard her, and we said, this is the voice we want. Now, in my own community, we looked around for a lot of women artists, right? But we could not find someone with that voice appeals. And this did not matter about the faith of the person. We just had to pick up the voice. We requested Salima. Salima's challenge was, she turns around and she says, I don't know all the rags in which Guru Nanak has sung. I only know X amount because what partition has done is also divided our cultures in terms of the rags and other things. Right? So I have not learned these other rags. So we said, okay, we will commission you to learn from Satinder Bondar over the internet. And she spent 8 months learning from Satinder over the internet from India. And after 8 months, in the peak of Corona environment, she recorded, right? And she sung in the rags that she written. Today, she has become the first Pakistani, not even a woman Pakistani, first Pakistani, because of this docu-series, to have rendered in all the rags in which Guru Nanak has written, which are about 37 notes. So that's a big achievement out of it. Right? And we again request the establishment to somehow recognize this talent, right? Because they give it the heart and soul. Niyazuddin, so Mahabir has sung the Rabab. Zohaib Hassan, so he's singing with Satinder, he's playing a Rabab with Satinder Bondar. Zohaib is playing the Sarangi with Salima. But Niyazuddin is one person I want to mention. He's from Baltistan in Pakistan, Hunzai, in Hunza region. In the Corona environment, imagine we are stuck out here and our docu-series is spanning across 9 countries. We want the music to reflect of that region. He's gone to that detail. As you get to Iran, you find the musicality of Iran. And you've got copyright issues. We don't want to, in the name of Guru Nanak, we don't want to steal anything. We might have had budget problems, but we're not going to steal any music. That's been our principle. Everything is going to be created or permissions taken. Because we don't want to cheat in the name of Guru Nanak's document, right? So, we were struggling. How will we get the variety of music from Balochistan, Sindh, Baltistan, Punjab, Afghanistan, and so on and so forth? This one man sitting in Lahore has given us music across multiple regions. One man. He made our life so easy. And we say that again, if you really want to recognize the talent, look at what one man has done. He's made our life so easy. And again, Niyazuddin is a great talent that we should recognize.
Thank you for sharing such gems from your journey. And
Thank you. It's these people who have done the docu-series, not us.
I'll have to now close this delightful evening because we've almost reached the end of our time, and I'd like to close it on the wisdom of one of the greatest Islamic spiritual leaders, Ali ibn Abi Talib. He said, and I quote, "People are of 2 types. They're either your brothers in faith or your equals in humanity." Thank you all once again for being a part of this event. And just a few more words, please bear with me. Okay, so it's no secret that Pakistan has a very strong food culture, and food is employed to express a whole range of emotions. It's happiness, excitement, supporting someone, honoring someone, and because of COVID restrictions, we are unable to break bread together. However, we would like to share this deep-rooted tradition by offering you little food boxes to take home with you. And as per your choice, we have both meat and vegetarian boxes. So please don't forget to collect them, small little gifts, tokens before you leave. And last but not least of all, there are always COVID instructions. So I would like to break up the hall in 3 sections, right, center and left. And I would like to request that people leave. Then the guests at the back section, then the center rows, then the ones in front. Then we move to the center seating, back, middle, in front. Thank you all for sharing us. I'm sorry we don't have much time, but if anybody wishes to ask a question or two, We have Amardeep here with us. Please go ahead.
I'm sure it seems like no question, but then if anyone wants to see the docu-series, see it on thegurunanak.com. You had a question here. So by the way, there are 24 episodes, so every week you can see one episode.
Amardeep, I like your concept of osmosis in the course of your presentation. You're a breath of fresh air. What next now? Because you've covered so much of grounds. Because I'm sure in the course of doing this docu-series, there must be some unanswered questions in your mind. I'd like to hear from you to share with the audience.
Thank you for asking that question. So the structured mind has plans, but I know it's the unstructured environment in which I'm operating is the one which always takes precedence, right? So sometimes the structured projects will take a back seat. But if you're asking me what we're attempting to do right now, as this docu-series started going out, we are happy that people are engaging and they're coming back and saying that, you know what, we want this to be for the masses. And therefore, what people are saying is that bare minimum, we've got to first translate this for the masses, where the adherents of Guru Nanak are largely Punjabis, so you've got to get this in Punjabi. And then there is a next group of people, and I'm personally invested in that, is why should Nanak be only limited to Punjab, right? Why shouldn't his story be told in a wider context? So I want it to be also translated and made this entire 24 episodes into a mix of Urdu and Hindi. A simple Urdu-Hindi mix which can be understood across Pakistan, India and Bangladesh. But these projects again require, yeah, absolutely, you are saying it, dollars, right? Because there is no revenue in it. It's freely available. Go and see it on the docu-series, right? The only hope is there will be some people sitting out there who believe that this is the right. Enough of putting gold on your gurdwaras, marble on your gurdwara buildings. Enough of feeding yourself the langars. Langar is supposed to be for the needy, not for yourself. There's a tradition, I understand. But enough of that. When are we going to create narratives? And I believe if the narratives are not there with a sound foundation, your whole house is shaking. And the energies have enabled this for us to make a stronger contribution towards a stronger foundation. Then I always ask myself, are there a few people in the world? I'll tell you a simple thing. If 3,000 people in the world can get up to say that, I learned something out of it, let me put $100. You know what? It gives me lifeline for 1 month, 1 year. To create Hindi and Punjabi and Urdu part of it. And if I can do that, the next thing that is coming up is musicology of Guru Nanak. We've stumbled upon this gems and rubies of musicology of Guru Nanak himself, and the spiritual traditions of the Indian subcontinent. We want to do that. Now, because we were short on money, we recorded only 2 or 3 lines of the words that we wanted, because when you get into a studio, there's a cost of the artist, there's a cost of the singer, there's a cost of the studio, there's a lodging, boarding cost. We had to cut all that out. We could only record 2 or 3 lines. Now I'm saying if there's value in it, if the community feels in it, why shouldn't we delve into the musicology of Nanak? And then the next one is, if breath is still there, is what about bringing the saints of the Indian subcontinent from Baba Farid to Jaidev to Namdev and across all these places who are residing in the Guru Granth Sahib of Punjab, right? It's a beautiful scripture where all the spiritualist traditions are actually coming together, but we boxed it. The world doesn't know about it. How about unboxing that and now taking it beyond Nanak and taking it to the spiritual diverse traditions of all these saints who have come there? A lot of Sikhs are telling me, how will you do? Now will you do the next thing about the second group, third group? I've told them, no, I will not. For me, for Nanak, we have to jump to the diversity of the traditions. Because between those poles, you would cover everything. So let's see what happens. There's a plan there. The corporate mind thinks on a plan. But the maverick in me knows that when I was in the corporate world, I used to make 5-year plans, but seldom deliver them, right? So the maverick in me hopes that people will rise to the occasion and deliver.
Please.
Ravi, can we take
Can I request you to please speak?
Let me get the mic. He'll get the mic.
Thank you very much. Amardeep, one of the big successes recently in this whole thing about climate and sustainability was to get the Pope to issue an encyclical about this, thanks to the work of Professor Ram Ramanathan of the Scripps Institute of the National Institute of Oceanography in San Diego. Is there something in the work of Guru Nanak that speaks to the environment, to the thing that can be adapted to a modern message which can be used gainfully in all this debate that we're having about climate, sustainability and all that? Have you come across that? And is it possible for you to broadcast that to the world?
Absolutely. And if you, all these issues in the 24 episodes, whether it's the women's empowerment, whether it's the gender issues, all the modern issues that we're talking about, climate, this, that, you find from the words of Guru Nanak being addressed in this docu-series. Not that we are trying to consciously do that as an interest, because it's there in his life's journey. Interesting when you start looking at from a modern contemporary context and you see what he has done, you find those messages are emerging. So, Ravi, maybe I'll draw your attention back to this one. If you go back to Jagannath Puri, we did bring that message out. Because when he saw that Aarti being done in front of the Jagannath wooden idol, he's singing about the veneration of the divine. And it's relevant to the climate and the creation, respecting the creation. And he's seeing the creator as the creation. So if you can respect the creation, you're directly respecting the creator, but through that entire verse he's saying that there are multiple such verses inside in his work. But Jagannath is a beautiful example about climate and respect for nature is what he's giving out there. But if you want, I can give that to you separately. I can send it to you. You can look at it. There's a small cut out here, but we are covering it in more detail in the Orissa section.
As much for myself, I was also thinking about you and what you can do to develop.
I'm not able to hear. Sorry, this AC is.
I was saying that as much as for myself, I was thinking of it from your point of view also to somehow extend this work that you're doing into areas that could also be relevant to more than a Sikh, Hindu, or subcontinental audience.
Yeah. I mean, there are social. Nanak's life is about social issues. I mean, and yes, absolutely, all these messages have come out. But the challenge, Ravi, is in the 8 years that I've done beyond a corporation as an organization, I've lived 25 years in a corporation, right?
That's what I know.
And corporation, there are multiple support structures around you. Here you are individual with your wife trying to do something which are bigger than corporation outputs, right? It's like National Geographic or people who do such research with university environments, right? You are individually trying to do it, and therefore you are, as much as the brain wants to do so much more, heart wants to do so much more, time and resources are not allowing you to do that, right? So it's like someone who saw from University of British Columbia as a professor, he made an interesting point. And he says, but I empathize with you. He says, by now, Amardeep, you should be having a pool of at least 15 million grant money sitting with you, because you again and again proven yourself. And your project should be led by a team of people with you, because you are creating these things. But you know what? I'm struggling for my next dollars to do the next Punjabi translation. Where's the $15 million was coming? I'm not an institution. And that's what I've accepted. Guru Nanak's verse says, Hum Admi Ha Ekdami. I exist because I took the last breath. I don't know if I'll take the last breath. In that past and today or next is my existence. And in that limited time that we have, there's much to achieve. And I always say, this is a race against time. And that race against time in this niche subjects, you have to compromise a lot. Not many people will be able to understand what you're doing, but in the past when people did something, we are bringing on that knowledge and writing. No one creates knowledge in isolation. People did that in the past, I have leveraged that, I'm going to create, someone else is going to leverage that. It's a collective consciousness. So you are racing against time, and that's the challenge. So I don't know what more I can do. but my mind is a bit kind of a fluid mind and it keep running this way.
Please.
Now with it.
Zainab, you can get the mic.
Thank you. I'm Zainal here. I must first say how amazed I am at the presentation and your sharing. And this is really wonderful. I must thank you. And of course, thank His Excellency for inviting me and all of us here to be part of the sharing. But I'd just like to make a comment. You know, I like your documentary. I'm not sure about the word allegory. The word gory there is a bit off-putting for me. I was wondering whether harmony would be more appropriate. And my question I'd like to ask you is about harmony. I think we lack that in this world today. If I may just share with you, 50 years back, when I was in school, a teacher, a form teacher, asked us Muslims, Sikh, Christian, Chinese, to talk about their own religions. And I spoke about Islam. This was back in 1968, 1967, was the pre-U school then. And to my surprise, after I spoke about Islam, sharing about Islam, a friend of mine, I thought he's Sindhi, but I'm not sure whether he's Sikh. Then he came to me and said, why are you sharing about Islam? Why are you sharing about harmony? Why are you expecting it? Do you know why the Sikhs have beard and turban? He asked me that bluntly. And he said one of the reasons why the Sikhs have beard and turban is because it is a vow they made, and because the Muslims had persecuted them during the Mughal period, and that's a vow they had. They said they will not do away with that until they have exterminated all the Muslims. I couldn't believe that. I don't know whether his interpretation is correct. And you look at the world today in India, the ISIS problem, the Muslim terrorists and extremists, these are all, I think, to me, distortions about people's understanding about religion. What we need most is harmony. So my question to you is, I see a lot of value in what you presented to us. I see a lot of value in His Holiness Guru Nanak's teachings. And how do we, I think the earlier question to how do we use more of that? A lot of discussion about environment, about climate change. There are areas where in fact we could actually use, whether from His Holiness Guru Nanak, whether from Islam or from Christianity, where are the common grounds which we could go and use so that we can have better harmony for our world today. Thank you.
I would say thank you for saying that. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. But again, I think the leaders of our organizations need to see that. It's like what you are seeing as a potential. And they need to come forward and say, we need to embrace this and take this forward. Because I can see all that in this work. But is there someone, let's start from adherents of Guru Nanak itself, will they want to embrace this and say, let's start making something out of this? Because I can't be doing everything. I've got my projects running ahead, I'm showing the content, moving on to the next one. I think that's where the things are breaking down. But as you do these encyclopedias of knowledge, and as you keep talking correctly, the right things out, messages go out, there are people like yourself picking up, or someone else is going to pick up. Whether I'll be engaged in it or someone else will be engaged in it, it's a repository of humanity, right? And people should pick it up. So I appreciate that when you're saying, I'm glad you picked it up, and I hope my community will pick it up also and rally something around it, because it's the need of the hour. But in moving on, I just want to take one opportunity of the first comment. It is wrong. It is a wrong understanding, because if you take Guru Nanak's life, 22 years traveling with his Muslim friend, You know, the Golden Temple in Amritsar, its foundation stone was laid by Sai Mia Mir, who's a Muslim, who's from Lahore. He's the one who laid the foundation stone. When Guru Nanak, if you see the second episode, at Guru Nanak's time was a transition in the Indian subcontinent from the Lodi dynasty to the Mughal dynasty. The Sultan, the Grand Lodi's rule was finishing, and both were adherents of Islam. Rulers, being an adherent of Islam does not mean it's the most Islamic rule. These are two different things. Rule and religion and faith are two different things. Yes, they have reasons for promoting that, that's a different thing. But in the time of Guru Nanak, when he was in Sultanpur Lodi, in the second episode you see that, Sultanpur Lodi's governor of the Lodi dynasty, he is the one who has spent so much of time with Guru Nanak and given him an employment in his place. When Guru Nanak vanishes in the river, he sends his people to search for him. This is out of love. Where is the faith dividing it, right? The problem happens is that when in the Mughal dynasty, there are every faith goes through this, political aspirations, expansion of territories, and all this is happening in Punjab. The Mughal dynasty, when it came in, there were some conflicts, political conflicts that happened in the communities, right? That political conflict has nothing to do with faith. And I think that's where the people who have not understood monism and monotheism are writing a different story about Nanak. They need to also understand there's a difference between Mughal and Muslim. You can't use Mughal and Muslim as two same thing. I think that's where I think so. So that person who's told you he has not been, his consciousness has not been ingrained in the right teaching, the right principles, because otherwise in the Guru Granth Sahib, every day in the morning, I would not be reading Baba Farid, who's a Muslim, who's residing in India.
Any other question from anyone?
I'll just make a last request. Would you care to tell the audience that a lot of the ostentation, the gold plating, the marbles that you see in Sikh Gurudwaras today, which I think it's a comment you made to me a few years ago, is a post-partition phenomenon. And if you really look into the essence, that Sikhism is not such a showy religion. I'm again trying to connect it back to sustainability and the kind of social divisions, the class divisions that we see today. And just if you could just end with that.
The small answer to that, my father used to say this. Before the community got dispersed, he came on this side. When you lose everything, you try and reassert yourself. This is a natural human tendency. When the Punjabis lost everything, came this side, similarly others went from that side, they were all trying to reassert. And Sikhs by nature, small population, they are very hardworking, they are in the cultivation belt, defense forces. Money was never a problem. But in the process of trying to reassert yourself, you then start reflecting it in the tangible stuff that you show. Because that's how you show I'm still alive, I'm still breathing, I've lost my everything, but I'm still alive. See, I've got gold buildings, I've got marble buildings, that's what you start doing. Now my father used to say this, right? He says, there was a time when the faith and the principles were strong and the buildings were just mud buildings, right? Today, the buildings have become gold plated and marble clad, and the faith and the righteousness has deteriorated. That's what has happened.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for your engagement and participation. Thank you to the audience. Thank you Amarji for sharing these gems. And the Hafiz, God bless and have a lovely evening ahead.
Thank you for being here. Very happy that we've been able to bring people of diverse faiths across two nations which can't see across that line. We're all sitting together. So if you want, we can live together.
So just as a reminder, please, we'll start exiting from this side, the back rows, middle rows and the front rows, then we'll move to the center section. Thank you. Have a lovely weekend. Please don't forget to take the food boxes.